What's up, everybody? Jeff here, and this year I decided that I'd get into this little game called Malifaux. Is that Malifax? I don't know how you say that. No, obviously I'm just kidding. This is the 4th edition 2-player starter set. Is a product that I think is kind of overdue from Weird. Something that is really easy to just pick up and get 2 players into the game with actually full crews. Unlike the starter boxes that they've done in the past. A lot of the older starter boxes were decent products in and of themselves, but this is really nice because it's like if you have somebody that's curious about Malifaux, you can just tell them buy this one box and they're ready to go. It's literally got 2 full crews pre-assembled, out of the box, ready to go. Widgets, decks, quick start guide for the rules, tokens. Good to go. Don't have to worry about it. It even comes with decks for the strats and schemes, as well as, of course, the cards for the models that are in the box. I actually posted pictures of the contents the first day of Gencon because they were out on the demo table, so I figured folks would want to see that stuff, and I got it up on the Discord real early. So if you're not on the Discord and you're interested in that kind of stuff, definitely head over there and check it out. But I thought it would be cool to jump in and see what you get and what it looks like when you actually first open it up. So we got 2 sheets of tokens. One of them is conveniently pre-punched. That's nice. It seems like these are very easy to punch, which is beautiful, because there's nothing worse than getting a sheet of tokens and having them rip when you poke them out of their things. So the cool thing, one of the cool things about 4th edition is that there is a limit to the number of any given token that you can have on the board at a time. And I know some people have said that they don't love that because it sort of, I guess in some ways, reduces the complexity of certain, like, marker spamming crews. But the nice thing is, it makes it very easy to collect your actual markers. You only need 5, right? If you played Rasputina, for example, in 3rd edition, how many ice pillars do you need? Question mark. No one knows. You never know. So you can make your own cool custom ones, but maybe you need more than that. Now it's 5. It's always 5. 5's the limit. If you ever put down another one, you take away one of the ones that are there. So that makes it nice because you just need 5 of every token and you're good to go. So this set comes with everything you need to play the 2 crews. We also have remains tokens. So in 4th edition, there's no more corpses and scraps and all that stuff. It's just remains for anything that dies, which is also a little bit more streamlined. And we have a little measuring widget. As far as I can tell, these are exactly the same as the ones from the old starter boxes. I don't think they're any different. But that's cool because they work well. You have a blast marker here, even though blasts aren't a thing anymore. If you ever needed to measure a 50mm circle, you could. And we have 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 6 inch, which is good because 1 inch, 2 inch, and 3 inch are good for measuring melee ranges, and 6 inches is good for measuring walk speed. Although 5 inches would also have been quite useful. So nothing too shocking here. You know, tokens, they're pretty good quality. They're quite thick. Let's see if we can actually see that. They're pretty thick, which is nice. Again, if you're at all familiar with these, you'll know they're effectively the same stuff. And my camera hates them. So this is like basically cardboard. Pretty cool. And the print quality is nice. Everything is very clear. Colors are nice and vibrant. I like it. They're a little shiny. But that's fine. We'll see how that works when you're filming battle reports and stuff. So we got tokens here, enough for 2 different crews. And, of course, another widget. The interesting thing here is, I actually didn't realize this. I actually, at Gen Con, told somebody the wrong information. This is not the same as the reference book that they're selling. So the way it's going to work in 4th edition is there are multiple rulebooks. There's actually kind of 3 different kinds. So you have the Quick Start Guide, which is just a simplified version of the rules. As far as I can tell, this is just like a tutorial style thing to get you ready to go. And it even comes with encounters that you can kind of walk through and sort of escalate the complexity, which is cool because that's something that they did in 2nd edition with the 2-player starter set, even though those were henchman-led crews. They had a little scenario that you played through that kind of built up the complexity as you went, which is really nice. But rules-wise, this isn't all of the rules. The book that you can buy, that's also a little one like this, is a more comprehensive version of the rules. It's not everything. It's not like the complex rules reference guide. That's the sort of highest tier. That's what you need if you need to know everything, and that's going to be available for free for download and probably also through the app. So you kind of have the, like, this is if you're brand new to the game and you just want to get started and you've never played before. The one that they're selling, I guess, is like a good one for bringing to the game store, just if you need to quickly reference something, you just want to poke through it and double check a rule. And then you'll always have the digital version if you really need to get into, you know, timing charts and things along those lines. This is fun because I'm a playtester, so my name should be on this list somewhere. I know many of these people. Let's see. It's me. So, contents list, some fun art with the 2 new crews, and yeah, I was hoping we'd get something like this. So we get a little primer on the lore. If you're watching my channel, then you probably don't need to read this, but it'll be interesting nonetheless. Some of the basics here, typical stuff you see in rulebooks. It looks, to my recollection, this looks formatted quite differently than rulebooks have in the past, which is interesting. Here's what I want to see. So encounters. So this is going to take you through. Yeah. So like, I think this encounter is literally just one-on-one. You get you get a model apiece. Go through, you know, the very basics of attack. Like, what does an attack stat line look like? So it takes you right from the very basics all the way up to 3-on-3. Looks like 3 minions versus 3 minions on a 2x2 board. Probably, you know, introducing some terrain to give you an idea how that stuff works. I wonder if they even have objectives in these ones. Goes over activations, line of sight. Yeah, so we do have an objective, which is cool. And then we add more complexity. So now we have your set of 3 minions plus a henchman. We have some more extra scenario objectives, and I'm sure this isn't even using like normal schemes yet, which is interesting. Scenario 4. So now we get all the way up to it looks like for 5-on-5 soulstone use. So we're layering on new rules with every scenario. Terrain rules, how you interact with the terrain, things like falling damage. And I guess these call-out boxes are examples, so that's always helpful, because sometimes if the rule's not clear to you, you'll want to see something like that, and it might help you understand. And I guess Encounter 5 is where we're going to get your actual masters, so Silent King, and presumably also your crew card, because as far as I know, the crew cards don't do anything unless you have a master on the table, so... Yeah, so now you get to the whole contents of the box on a 3x3. So this is the first, you know, full-size big boy game, or big girl game, big person game, how about that? Or fish monster or robot, you know, we don't judge here. And we're introducing actual card straps and schemes. And then it kind of tells you how to play a full game. So this is great. I think this is, you know, one of the things that me and other members of the community have talked a lot about is that demoing Malifaux is difficult, and there needs to be like a more streamlined or like a set way to take somebody through learning a game, because some people are, it's very hard to teach Malifaux to somebody, especially at, you know, in a setting like a convention. So having something like this, I think, is a great way to sort of not only teach somebody how to play, but also teach someone how to teach someone how to play, if that makes sense, right? If you're a veteran player and you're coming into 4th edition knowing what you're doing, go through this if you're trying to recruit new players and get a sense of how it layers on the rules and how it builds up the complexity. And that might help you when you're giving tutorials or when you're teaching your buddies or you know, you're recruiting people at the local game store. This is probably going to be super useful for teaching people how to teach people or learning how to teach people. But as you can see, this is not really a rule book. It walks you through this stuff, but it's not really something that you would want to, you know, again, if you're a veteran player, you're not going to use this as your rules reference. The book that they're selling is the actual, like, mini rule book. But the real rulebook is free to download, as always. So if you don't want either of these things, you don't need them. Moving on, we have the rest of the things. The models, funny enough, I posted pictures of the models they brought to the convention, and they had very quickly slap chopped them, because as far as I know, these came in like the week that they were leaving for Gencon, so they had to like pull them out of the box, very, very quickly paint them up just so that they were recognizable on the table, and then go. So a lot of people mistakenly thought they came in colored plastic. They do not. This is, as far as I can tell, the same plastic that they've been using for their pre-built models for quite a while now, a couple years, at least since the old starter boxes. The quality has gotten a lot better over time. Some of the early starter boxes I thought were quite mushy, especially the faces. You can see there's quite decent sharp details on these. They're not going to be on the same level as the multi-part kits, which is expected. Pre-built models, just because of the nature of how they get produced, they have to be, they're inevitably going to be lower quality. They're also soft, just like the others. You can kind of wiggle them. The nice thing about that is they're not as fragile, so if you drop this, you're not going to break it. It's not going to shatter. But you can, you can see that they are quite nice. As far as single piece models go, you get the convenience of not having to build them. They come out just like this. They are very good quality, even if it's not what you get out of a multi-part kit. I'm a big fan of the weird little robots. I know some people don't like them. They think they're too, like, unusual, or like goofy. I don't find them goofy. They're funny looking, but they're kind of supposed to be. They're supposed to be like amalgamations of random stuff. And they also have their own like weird culture that they developed living in Ampersand. I, of course, like the lore, so anything that has interesting lore implications, it's going to be my jam. I don't know how she went in there. There we go. I did it. And then, of course, we have the Banished. Also quite exciting from a lore perspective. These guys are related to, things like the Silurids, things like the Gibbering Hordes, the Sirens, as well as the Tyrant Meridian. I've done a video about that if you're interested in learning more about the lore of these guys. But cool design. I think overall it seems like people were probably a little more excited about these guys just from an aesthetic perspective. They have a little bit of a Pirates of the Caribbean vibe. They're definitely unique. They're definitely different than the Gibbering Hordes and the existing kind of bayou or aquatic Neverborn that we know of, which is cool, because if they just look like Gibbering Hordes models, that wouldn't be quite as fun. They are, this guy's actually got quite a bit of detail, which is nice. I don't see connection points, which is good. So it doesn't really look like they're going to need any cleaning up. I also don't see any mold lines, which is great. I like that a lot. The soft plastic can be a little harder to clean. But they've done a pretty good job of limiting that stuff. I haven't come across a single one yet. Get in the comments if you have the starter box. Let me know if you found mold lines or connection points. Usually you'll see at least one connection point where the plastic was injected and it's like on a foot or something like that. A little bit of a bendy sword. That's probably easy enough to fix. Hopefully the plastic is hard enough that once you fix it, it'll stay that way. Unfortunately, the original TOS models were so bendy that even if you fix them, they'd just fall back, which was unfortunate. I think a lot of people, this is their favorite model. It's a big boy. Another comment I've seen people make is that most of these models fit on their bases appropriately, which is funny, because Weird has a fun habit of making models that dramatically hang over their bases. You can't contain the amazingness that is a Weird model on a teeny little base. They need to spill over. But these ones actually don't. Not, at least not as much as a Malifaux Rex, perhaps. And we have Steiner. I had a few people at the con comment on this model because they didn't even know like what Malifaux was or anything. They were just like, "Wait, is that an attack piano?" And I was like, "Yeah." Why wouldn't it be an attack piano? It kind of looks like a mimic to me. It almost, the sheet music hanging down kind of makes it almost look like a tongue or a mouth. So it kind of looks a little bit like a mimic, but it's cooler than a mimic because it's weird Malifaux. Okay, so we have one connection point. You see that right there? We'll just have to clean that up a teeny bit. Not a big deal. But no mold lines. What kind of black magic do you think they use to make these without mold lines? I don't know. So the Fate decks, I also posted pictures of these at Gencon. There's a couple of interesting things about these. It's going to take me a second to get into them. Come on. So, if you're familiar with the many Fate decks that we just put out over the years, most of them used to have the little pips that show the damage level, so weak, moderate, severe, on the different values of the cards. Obviously, that's not relevant anymore because we don't have damage tracks. But a fun thing that they did, which is very clever, is they put in power on the 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s because they are low cards that you're allowed to use to empower. Which is very handy because in my first couple of games, I definitely forgot that there was a limit and that you could only use up to a 5. These are paper cards. I feel like they're thicker than some of the paper cards that we've seen. Obviously, people have strong opinions on the material that the decks are made out of. Most people prefer the thicker cards, the like plasticky ones. These seem pretty good for paper. They're on the thick side. They shuffle up okay. I did see a little bit of bending if you riffle them, but not a huge deal. And you get them in the starter box. I mean, let's face it, if you're not new to the game, you probably have 1,000 Fate decks. I don't know how I feel about the art only being on the face cards. I understand why, but one of the coolest things about Malifaux is the art, right? It would be cooler if there was more art. I know that's how they did it on the starter box decks and third as well, but that's why I never used any of those decks. So not just the models from this box, of course. We get some other just regular old Outcast characters, and then we have the Effie and the Emmy on the black and the red, which is appropriate. Pretty cool. You probably don't need me to show you the Neverborn deck because it's picture this one but purpler and Neverbornier. How about that? But there's pictures up online already. I've posted. Other people have done the same, so you can go check them out. We have bases for everybody. The bases have not changed. These are the same as what you're used to from 3rd edition if you played. So the 40 and 50 mil bases are hollow in the bottom. There's not even like a lip where the gap used to be. I forget what you call it, like the cut on the old-fashioned types of bases. Oh, actually, okay. Here's an example. This is an older base because it does have the little channel. So they used to make models that would like be on a thing and there'd be a hole here, and you'd stick the little channel. It was annoying. I didn't like it, but you still see that from some companies. Not usually from Weird. I think these are probably just vestiges of the old bases. Interesting, there's also a slight difference in the lip you can kind of see there. It doesn't really make any difference. Once you make a base, you won't notice. Unfortunately, the 30 mil bases are garbage and I hate them. Just kidding. Unfortunately, the 30 mil bases are still the new style where there's no gap in the bottom to put a magnet. So you probably have to drill holes in these, which is unfortunate. In 2nd edition, the bases were more along the lines of these, so you could very easily just stick a magnet in the bottom, and it was convenient, but these ones are not. On the other hand, they're a little lower profile. Some people like that. I kind of also don't like that because it makes it harder to pick the bases up. You got to grab them by the model, and you get all kinds of problems. But, maybe they're also less plastic, so that's probably the actual reason, and I guess that's probably a good thing. And last but not least, we have the cards. This is probably the thing I always recommend, especially for new players. This is the thing that makes it very easy to play. It's a good purchase. It's a good kind of lifestyle purchase because when you're new to the game, especially if you're coming from a war game that has fewer objectives in play at a given time, having these decks is really convenient to reference so you know what you're doing at all times, because you really do have to keep up with what scenario, what objective, what scheme, and what strategy you're working on at any given time. And it's especially important now because these are going to be things, you know, if you've played any 4th edition yet, you know that the way the schemes are going to work is you're going to be working on one scheme. It's important that you're paying attention to the schemes because you have to kind of be trying to score it every single turn. And then you also have to kind of follow the flow where after you either complete the scheme or decide to discard it because you didn't, then you have to go to one of the next schemes in the little flow chart. So it's a lot easier if you have these. Of course, the app will allow you to do that stuff, but it's nice to have these cards to be able to reference while you're playing. I find most people prefer the cards. It's not necessary, you don't need it, but it comes in the starter box, which is cool. We have the strategies. We then have some reference cards. These are going to be super handy because, again, this is a new edition, so even the vets are kind of, to an extent, learning what they're doing. And then we have the actual cards for the crews. Now, this is really cool. I know they've already talked about this. I think Justin mentioned this in the interview that I did with him, but you get 2 copies of your crew card. And the idea here is that if I'm playing Clockwork Queen, when I sit down at the table, I'm going to give one of these to my opponent, keep one for myself to reference, but then they're going to have this in their hand so they can reference the abilities that my whole crew gets. Really, really, really convenient because obviously the stuff on here is super important. A lot of the ability, you know, there's some variance in how these work, but oftentimes the way it works is on the front you're going to have abilities that are available to your whole crew, or just to a bunch of models in your crew at least. Sometimes it's only like characters or something like that. And then on the back is all the tokens that you work with. So instead of having to remember or constantly ask your opponent, what does bolstered do? You'll just have this in front of you, so you can just look, oh, okay, I got a bolster token, that's what this does. Really nice, really smart that they did that. Then, of course, we have the cards for all the models in the crew. Pretty standard here, nothing too fancy. More or less what you expect. If you've played Malifaux before, you're familiar with these cards. They are the same size as the 3rd edition cards, so if you have sleeves, that's convenient. The layout is roughly the same. I don't love the stats being in a circle like that. I know that was a piece of feedback that was given during the closed beta, I believe, or maybe even during the open beta. It makes it a little harder to understand what's going on with the stats, and I'm sure that's something that'll be easier once we get used to it, but it would be nice to have them all kind of in the same place, so it's easier to see them all at once, but just a minor thing, and something that I think we'll get used to. The cards definitely look a little cleaner because many of the abilities are moved to the crew card, so things look less complicated, and sometimes the perception is helpful. If things look less complicated, they feel less complicated, and it makes people happy, which is cool. You know, more or less what we had in 3rd edition, you know, down to like this base size being on the bottom, on the back. Nothing too surprising here. And then we have the other crew. And that's it. So that is the contents of the starter box. It's a really good product. I think it's something that Weird has needed for a long time. You know, having a single player starter box is cool, but everybody, for some reason, loves 2-player starter boxes, whether it's to collect both crews or to split with a friend. It's nice to just have a product that you can say, here is everything you need. You can literally just take this out of the box, glue the models down very quickly, and then you're ready to play a game if you have some terrain. Or you can set up an airport game. Shoutouts to Brandon and Emery. I think the biggest difference, though, is that this is 2 crews that are master-led, and I think that's really important. The old starter boxes were cool, but they were all henchman-led, and that meant that learning the game with those boxes was a very different experience from what you were going to play when you actually play a game of Malifaux. So this allows you to hit the ground running, be ready to go with master-led crews, proper actual games of Malifaux, and a quick start guide that's going to kind of build you up and allow you to go step by step and learn the rules as you go. So you don't need a friend who knows Malifaux inside and out to teach you. You can just go through those steps and you can kind of teach yourself the game as you go. I think that's really, really good. I think it's really important. It's something that the game has been missing for a while. And anecdotally, from what I saw at Gencon, it seems like this set is really, really nice for teaching people the game, whether they're vets or new to Malifaux. We had lots and lots of people come for walk-up demos, and the feedback that I was hearing was that this is a really, really good way to do it. It looks like Weir's going to be doing the demos, at least for the foreseeable future, with these sets, whereas they used to just use a kind of smattering of the starter sets from 3rd edition. Seems like this is going to be the set they use for now, so pretty cool. I'm looking forward to seeing when the new boxes will come out for these crews, because obviously these keywords are not complete with what you see here. There is more coming, so that's going to make some great expansion content. I'm curious, I don't know if they've said this officially yet, but it would be interesting to see them do like an expansion to the starter box with the other 2 crews, because if you have one of these crews, you probably have the other one anyway, or at least you know someone to split it with. So putting out the title boxes together in another like starter box 2.0, for lack of a better term, would be kind of cool. That would be interesting to see, but I guess we will have to wait and find out. I think at the time of recording, they are not yet on the release schedule, so it's probably going to be a handful of months before we see that stuff anyway. But it's a great way to get started. If you have friends that are getting into the game, or if you're curious and you want to get into the game, if you like the look of these crews, it's definitely a great way to go. It's a really good value, and yeah, welcome to Malifaux. I want to send a huge thank you to the extremely cool kids tier on Patreon, the Steam Powered Scoundrels, Dogmatize, Spanner Rider, Tom Likely, Rob Younce, and Russets. And thanks for watching.